When I was a kid, I was terrible at sports. My body didn't develop any kind of athletic coordination until I got to college. Hashtag band geek. But when I was growing up in Florida, I played wiffle ball in my friends' backyards all the time. I was Tom Seaver pitching for the Mets, and my friend was Pete Rose, the best pure hitter of all time. Or I'd be playing soccer in another friend's yard. And then in my teen years, I moved to Maryland and I played football in a field behind someone's house up the hill from my house. I was terrible, but I played. And every once in a while, I even caught a catch. I'm not the only person who's made this observation before, but our children don't play sandlot baseball or pick up football in the field behind so-and-so's house anymore. In today's world, if you don't play in a league, then you don't play at all. Plus, of course, we parents just can't trust the people out on the streets like we used to. So I mourn for what our kids miss out on today. And it's more than just not having the opportunity to learn to love playing sports. They've missed out on a sense of belonging in a neighborhood. They've missed out on the chance to develop the skills of making friends with all kinds of people from the neighborhood. Now, I don't want to push this too hard because I recognize that I also picked up on a few bad habits from spending unsupervised time with some of the more foolish neighborhood kids, but there is wisdom in having parental supervision. But I bring all that up to tell you this. Some neighbors in my current neighborhood are doing something that the church should be great at, but we're not. We've started having a bunch of neighborhood get-togethers. So we live in this historic district in our town. Our house is over 110 years old. And we've got these amazing parks and sidewalks. People are always walking their dogs or going out for a jog. But like in most neighborhoods, it's hard to get to know the people inside the other houses. One family moved from out of state into another old house down the street from ours about the same time we did 4 years ago. Well, they decided that a lot of people in our neighborhood have lived here for decades. They already have deep relationships, but others of us are relatively new to the neighborhood, and we don't have those deep connections. So last summer, they hosted a pool party and invited the neighborhood. What a concept! We showed up and met neighbors who we probably would not have met on our own. And then another family down the street followed their example and invited the neighborhood over to their house for lunch on a Saturday the next month. A third family had a Halloween party. My family got in on the fun and we hosted an open house for Christmas. This week we're going to yet another house to have a St. Patrick's Day shindig. It's been fun. Some of these families are deeply involved in their churches and others are unchurched. And that's the beauty of it. We're making new friends, and my family's having an opportunity to show Christ-like love to our neighbors. Do you know how many verses in Proverbs use the word neighbor? 29. Living a life of wisdom means living in relationship with other people who live near you. One of those verses is Proverbs 27, verse 10. It says, "Better is a neighbor who is near than a brother who is far away." I think many of us Christians miss out on this concept. We like to develop a few friendships through our churches or through some other school or activity group. And we're content maintaining those familiar, comfortable relationships. But we don't put much energy into establishing new relationships, especially in our neighborhoods. Listen to Jesus' wisdom in Luke chapter 14, verse 12. Jesus had been invited to a banquet, possibly a wedding feast. And here's what he said to the person who was throwing the banquet. In Luke 14:12, he said, "When you give a dinner or banquet, do not invite your friends or your brothers or your relatives or rich neighbors, lest they also invite you in return and you be repaid." Instead, Jesus said, we should be inviting people who can't necessarily invite us in return. And after this, Jesus told the parable of a man who held a big banquet and invited all of his closest friends. But all of his close friends made up excuses not to come. So the man told his servants to go out into the streets and invite the poor, the sick, the forgotten people. And Jesus was not saying that it's wrong to invite close friends over for dinner. He wasn't saying don't invite people who will invite you back to their house. His main point was this: we need to stop thinking about pursuing friendships with people who make us feel comfortable. We ought to be reaching out to new people, to lonely people, to needy people. We should be taking the initiative to make new friends with new people, to include them and to show them Jesus' love. What we need to understand is the lost art of friend-making is not just an effort to help you be happier in your relationships. It is a gospel imperative. Why aren't we the ones who are taking the initiative to meet our neighbors and to come up with creative ways to build new friendships? Why aren't our churches places where we are constantly inviting new people to join in on some fun? How are we obeying the Great Commission? Go, therefore, and make disciples. If we're not getting out of our houses and our churches and making new friends with the people who live around us. Jesus teaches us that this is a kingdom value. When's the last time you made a new friend with someone in your neighborhood? The spring season is around the corner. Maybe now is the time to get your barbecue grill in good working shape and invite your neighborhood over for a cookout. Or maybe you could have an ice cream sundae social. In our neighborhood, it was an unchurched family that got this whole ball rolling. We in the church ought to be taking the lead and making new friends for the sake of the gospel. I think you'll find out that it's a lot of fun, but it's also a chance to show people what having a family in Christ is like.